what about pre-production? What was there a pre-production on this new album?
Yeah, so which we have also learned from doing the last album. The better the scratch, the better the demo is before going in. Obviously, it's going to lead to a better end product. We're really heavy in like demo mode right now, so we want to just get as many demos together as possible. The more time we spend on creating these demos, the better it's going to be in the end. And we just come in and use those demos as scratch tracks and gives us a better idea in the studio.
Right.
So yeah, pre-production is huge.
So
for sure.
So to clarify, you are essentially recording your own scratch tracks and entirely like fleshing out the song in pre-production.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty much like what we were doing before with you, except for we're just not paying to get those mixed and mastered, right? We're just going into the studio and retracking stuff. And obviously things change in the process, but the closer you get going into the studio, the better it is.
This is the Self-Recording Band Podcast, the show where we help you make exciting records on your own, wherever you are, DIY style. Let's go.
Hello and welcome to the Self-Recording Band Podcast. My name is Malcolm Owenflood. Today's a different episode than usual because, well, first off, Benny's not here. I think for the first time, Benny's not here, maybe the second time. But I'm doing this one not alone. I am with my good friends, colleagues, past clients even. Have we ever played on the same stage? With you, I have.
Yes, we have, yeah.
So I'm here with the guys from Wet Future. I've got Lucas and Brett from Wet Future Lucas has been on the podcast before.
Yeah.
First time for Brett. Welcome, Brett.
Thank you.
But we are doing it's going to be a cool episode. We're going to recap your first album because for people that are new and haven't heard the original episode we did together, Wet Future self-recorded their debut album. It was like a full LP, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was 9 songs.
Yeah, that's an LP for sure. And so self-recorded that. I got to mix and master it. Very fun, cool project that I'm super proud of, and it's done pretty well, I would say. But now you're in the studio with a producer doing it kind of the opposite way, the kind of the non-DIY way. So we want to explore the comparison between those, and I think you guys are perfectly suited to talk about that and give those perspectives, having done it both ways. There was one song on the first album that you did track in the studio as well. So you've gotten to see it done multiple different ways. You've both made other albums in different ways as well, I'm sure. I know that Lucas and I have cut many albums together, actually.
For sure.
So songs, at least. Albums as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Done a lot together over the years.
Yeah, it's been, actually, I just added this up this morning. It's been about 7 years.
Really?
That we've been working together, yeah.
Since Shepherd song number 1.
Yeah, exactly. Ever since we came, I don't know if everyone knows this, but Malcolm was in like the hottest band on the island, Band of Rascals. they were killer. When I first moved to Victoria, I remember, there was a couple bands. There was Jesse Roper, and then there was Band of Rascals, and they were like, those are the holy grail bands. And I remember going to Rifflandia, the music festival.
Yep.
And just before, we already had tickets to go, and we were going to go check you guys out. And it was like a week before that, you were like, hey, we found you online, and I like Shepherd. See if you want to come cut a song with me. And we were so stoked. So I remember meeting you for the first time at, was it Rifflandia?
I think so.
Yeah, it was Rifflandia. Yeah. And Roper was also playing on stage with you guys at the time too. And it felt really cool.
Awesome.
That you brought us to the side, and you're like, yeah, I like your stuff. And we're like, we were starstruck at the time, Malcolm. It was amazing.
Awesome. And Brett, when did we first meet? It must have been through...
It was with Shepherd.
It was with Shepherd.
It was with Shepherd, with Lucas, when they asked me to play drums on their EP.
Right.
And then, obviously, throughout the years, we just kept working together as well with some other tracks as well, with Chase and stuff like that.
Yeah. But I don't think we've ever actually gotten to cut a drum track together in the studio yet.
No.
Maybe one day.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed, buddy.
Well, you guys did the Shepherd stuff together?
But I think...
At Infinity Studios.
Oh my gosh,
yeah,
we did.
That was it, yeah.
3
Awesome.
songs.
It was 3 songs. Yeah,
Thank
that's
you,
right.
Lucas.
Yeah.
Smart man.
Yeah.
I'll never forget it, yeah.
Awesome. One of us has got a memory.
Yeah.
All right, so let's back it up. Wet Future, listeners, again, go check out the first episode we did with Lucas and Sean, the singer of the band. Oh yeah, and for people, just so everybody knows what's going on, Lucas plays guitar. You're the lead guitarist of Wet Future, and Brett is the drummer of Wet Future. And yeah, so we got to back it up. First album, the first single, you actually go into the studio and cut it.
Yeah.
And I believe that kind of looked like, it was Silverside Sound, which is just down the road from here, actually, just around the corner, and big live room. Did you track the bed tracks live?
Yeah, we did all the bed tracks live. It was pretty fun. At the time, Brett was just hired as, in quotations, the session guy.
Yep.
And so he came in with like these drum tracks that we were like, we want you to play this. And then he came in, and then we were working with Chris Erickson at the time, who was producing it. And he came in, he's like, Brett, just play anything else. So he played what he felt, and it turned out to be a way better song.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So playing as a band, though, that's like, it's a great way to play,
Yeah.
right? It feels pretty natural recording with the whole band set up. Everybody
Definitely.
can kind of react to each other. So I'm assuming you enjoyed that experience.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely benefits to both, obviously. Personally, I love to do it that way.
Yeah.
For sure.
Great.
Yeah.
What about you, Brett?
Yeah, I think I can go both ways on it. Being a drummer, sometimes I like being as tight as I can with just a bed track that's already done for me. But then also at the same time, it's a nice feel having the band in the room
Yes.
as well.
Yeah.
So I'm both ways.
Cool.
Yeah. I think it really depends on a song-to-song basis for sure.
It certainly does.
Yeah. I most of the time I love the bed track idea. And I think at first I'm just like, you get perfect by just playing by yourself and focusing on the one track. But I think that playing as a group, it really shows in the recording for sure.
Mm-hmm.
We actually, on a couple songs we did it where we did it off scratch tracks. And we have learned that the scratch track needs to be absolutely perfect. Or, the drummer might cater to how the scratch track sounds. And
Yes.
then at the end of it, you need to maybe edit or move stuff because the feel is not quite there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
100%.
yeah, for sure.
Okay. So you cut that song as a band, live on the floor, some vocal overdubs, that kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
A pretty common approach in like the all rock genre, I would say.
Absolutely.
But then the next song, it's now we're going to do it DIY, right? Entirely DIY.
Yeah.
So what was, if you remember, what was the ethos behind wanting to do it like that, and how did it go?
Well, the reason we wanted to do it was definitely financial reasons.
Yeah.
If we could have done all of it at Silverside in the studio, I mean, we would have done it. But we were a brand new band, had never done a show ever.
Yeah.
It was like, starting us through COVID. So we had no money. So everything was out of pocket. So we were, decided that DIY was the route to go.
Yep.
And conveniently at that time, the Self-Recording Band podcast was really doing a lot of episodes and stuff like that. So we learned obviously a lot. So yeah, I mean, at that time, Brett was kind of joining the band full time, and he has a little sound isolated drum studio that he teaches out of. So we did scratch tracks, me and Sean, the lead singer, and our old bass player Cam Zyme. We just did some really rough scratch tracks, sent it to Brett. He cut some great drums, sent it back, and we did all of our tracks at home, pretty much in my small little condo downtown Victoria, where you're dealing with like traffic driving by, sirens, everything.
Yeah.
We made like little forts that Sean could sing in.
Yeah.
Everything was a DI guitar track that we sent to you, and you made magic out of it. I don't know how.
Reamps.
Yeah. We had a lot of issues. I think probably the second song in or something we did with you. I remember we were just like, the guitar tracks were just bad. And I remember you like sent back the mix. I'm like, oh yeah, Malcolm definitely retracked some of these guitars.
I didn't.
No?
I swear I
thought you said you did on it. No?
I added guitars to Bittersweet.
That's what it was. Yeah.
I
I'm like,
remember,
this sounds way better. So,
I was like, this chorus is just like meant to hit, and it didn't. So I added another power chord layer kind of thing.
I love it. Yeah, and that's definitely what it needed. So anyway, we were just so early into new to be making tracks and stuff that we didn't even know what we were doing.
Yeah.
So the fact that you worked the magic you did is incredible.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I do remember like dealing with the guitar thing, 'cause tracking guitars. Yeah, I mean, as you know, like even working with me in the studio in person, it's like the intonation has to just be so good. So that was like something we kept on working on. But I do remember that as you sent me songs, and for the listeners, they don't know, but you were doing one song at a time.
Yeah.
So it was like track, songs finished, send it to Malcolm, mix, release. Another song shows up a month later or something. Yeah. It's kind of like how it went. Mm-hmm. And it just kept getting better,
Yeah.
So I remember by Crooked Judge, I used your guitar tone even. I didn't even reamp it.
Yeah.
It was like, this sounds fucking awesome.
Okay, but let's be honest there. That's because I didn't give you a DI track because I screwed up in the recording process. And you did the whole mixing course with that. And I'm like, oh, I hope he doesn't pick the song, but it's up to him to pick it. But I didn't even give you a DI because I screwed up in the recording.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, it was awesome. It was,
to me,
it
turned out great.
I thought it was the perfect tone.
Yeah.
So I was thrilled with it on honestly.
For sure.
So but like the information was good as well.
Good.
You know, it just like it progressed and got better and better kind of
Yeah.
thing. It was like there's a huge advantage to doing one song at a time where there's this feedback cycle that happens every time. So
For
if we
sure.
run into an issue, it's like, hey, I remember with you, Brett, the room mics, I just kept muting them essentially, and then you had like a mono room that you just kept moving around. So I think I just kept telling you to try somewhere new, and then I think you ended up with it like down low to the ground, maybe even behind the door. Does that ring a bell?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's still in the same spot
Yeah,
now.
yeah. It was like, hey, this really worked. Keep doing that. You know, we just kind of kept messing with it. And then I remember something got clipped on one song. So it was like, we got to make that lower gain. And so the process of self-recording did get better every song, which was awesome. And I think we just mentioned this off air before the podcast, but it's done well. Like the song Nothing, it's like 65,000 streams, I think.
Yeah.
And growing. It's on a huge Spotify playlist, which is awesome. Congratulations, guys.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So, and then I'm like, what was the first single?
That was Toughen Up.
Toughen Up. Yeah.
Yeah.
That got on the radio.
Yeah.
So that's freaking cool as well. So like bang for buck, I think you guys did really well with that album, you know, of like, hey, we have to do it this way because we're trying to save money. And you pulled off a quality product and it performed well. So that's a huge win.
Yeah.
Now, fast forward, this album is out, released. You're selling out shows in Victoria, which is awesome. And you decide, okay, it's time to cut our new album.
Yeah.
What's the conversation? And how does it go from we're saving all our money to do it DIY entirely, aside from mixing and mastering, to let's go into the studio and cut a song with a real producer and engineer and quite a nice studio as well.
Mm-hmm. How did that conversation first come up, Brett? Well, I mean, we had some money because we had done a bunch of shows and we had, a good amount of coin in the bank and we had the means to do so. We kind of knew that was the next level. We are absolutely proud of the album that we did. And, I can listen to it now and I don't hate it, which is great.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just got to say, we wouldn't have had that album if it wasn't for, first of all, you and the Self-Recording Band podcast.
Oh, thanks.
It couldn't have happened because we didn't know I wouldn't even know how to use a DAW or anything like that, to make tracks leveled or anything like that.
I didn't even know what one was.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we're very proud of it. And, I think when we finished it up, we were like, well, what's the next sort of step forward in the band and stuff like that? And we wanted to do all studio work before. And now that we had a little bit of money, we got a grant from the government, which was really great.
Mm-hmm.
And so we searched around and Sean actually met our producer now, Sheldon Zarko, through doing videography at the Warehouse in Vancouver, which is, if you don't know, a big, beautiful studio owned by Brian Adams.
Love it.
I know you've been there.
Yep.
So we met Sheldon through there and we just kind of decided that was a route we want to go. Sean, just being in the studio with him, just loved his efficiency and how quick he was working and whatnot. So we kind of just decided to give it a shot. So we booked at Monarch Studios. Have you ever been there?
Yeah. I cut an album there, and I love that place.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So we went in there, and we just decided that was the best route to go. We didn't do too much shopping around, to be honest. We were just like, oh yeah, let's do it. And we've looked at his catalog, and it sounds great.
Yep. Yeah. Did Sheldon recommend the studio? No, you guys chose the studio.
We decided that.
We chose it. We wanted to get into Warehouse, but again, it was a bit more money.
Yeah,
and it was between that and another studio. But we decided that was going to be the best route. We loved some of the other bands that have been in there. So
to give people a perspective that they're not familiar with either of these studios, the Warehouse is possibly the nicest studio in North America.
Yeah,
definitely
amazing.
I mean, definitely top 2 in Canada for sure. It's huge, it's giant, amazing building. But the Monarch is by no means a small mom and pop studio. It's a commercial facility as well with amazing gear, amazing rooms, great sound and acoustics, very natural sounding drum room, which I'm sure you love.
Absolutely.
And I've heard a couple tracks off the new album and they represent that. To me, that sounds like Monarch's drum room very much so. That's cool.
Very
well done. And shout out to Sheldon as well because he does great work.
Yeah,
I can tell.
He definitely does.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
Love working with him.
So it was like that you had tasted that with the first song Toughen Up, doing that Silverside,
for sure,
doing your Beds Live. Was this similar, by the way, like Beds Live and then some overdubs?
Yeah, so the first song we chose, Mona Lisa, it's out. Check it out now, Spotify, Apple Music. We just had played the song like when we were writing it, like it came together really quick. And it felt like a live off the floor song. And we went in and we went in with the intention to do it that way. We went in with no scratch track or anything like that. Like we had like a quick demo we had made. And that's the kind of the direction Sheldon wanted to sort of go with recording it too. So we went in and we did the bed tracks all pretty quick. And then, overdubbed some guitars and vocals. And we came out like in one day with pretty much the song almost complete.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So you tasted that. You're like, hey, I think we can afford it. You met somebody that feels like the right person.
Yeah.
So then book a studio, go do it. Is there any carryover from the DIY approach?
Yes.
That's
so on Mona Lisa in particular, just because we're on that song right now, we left the studio with pretty much everything done other than background vocals, and we did some keys and stuff after.
Nice.
So it was like it was great because we left the studio and Sheldon pretty much immediately sent us what we did that day, which is so fun. It's over in Vancouver, so we're back driving on the ferry and listening to the song. Like, oh, we just did this. This is so great. It sounds beautiful. And then we got together and figured out some nice key lines and just kind of overdubbed that. And then the vocals. Did we do the vocals in your studio or was that at?
It was in Monarch.
So we made we did background vocals of Sean's. He was living downtown at the time, and we made like a little blanket fort, threw him in that with a SM7B.
Nice.
And did the harmonies and stuff like that. So it was, there's a little fraction of that song that is very much DIY that we carried over.
Totally.
Which was great.
Yeah.
And it allowed us to not have to book another day in the studio to do this other stuff that we, could easily do on our own.
100%.
So yeah.
That skill set came in handy.
Exactly.
Sure, right?
Yeah,
Definitely
for sure.
did.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just did an episode pretty recently. Can't remember what it was called. Sorry, listeners. I just fly by the seat of my pants with this stuff. But it was essentially breaking down like, what should you choose? Should you hire a producer? Should you self-record? Should you find a hybrid approach? And Benny and I both agree, despite hosting this episode or this podcast called the Self-Recording Band Podcast, that hiring a team of professionals is the most surefire way to get a really great product, right? Like that's why you're hiring them, and that's what they have a proven track record of doing. Now, a lot of people can't afford that, so they still need to find a way to get great results, which is what you did. You're the poster child of this podcast.
Thank
I feel
you very
like
much.
It's so perfect.
Yeah.
Like you've kind of like done it all these different ways, and seeing you do it in a hybrid way like that is super cool as well, I think.
Also, even working in the studio, especially with Sheldon there, like he played such a huge role. It felt, we were producing it with him. Like he did a really great job of like, we knew what we wanted. And when something came up where we were indifferent about an opinion, he was very quick to speak up. So it was great. Like we really like guided it. And then he was there to just make sure that things were moving like properly, and he made decisions when we didn't know how to make a decision, which was great.
Yeah, so let's talk about that more, because when you're self-recording, the not having a producer is like the biggest challenge, right?
Oh, yes, it is.
Like you need somebody to tell you, like, hey, that was a great take, Brett.
Yeah.
Like, good fill
For
on
sure.
the third course.
Definitely.
That was awesome. Do that again, or we don't need to do it again.
Yeah.
But you don't have that when it's just you in a room.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's not always the best option wins sometimes. Sometimes it's the loudest option that wins when you're producing as the band and, one person has an opinion. It's nice to have the producer to kind of like, check all of that. Like maybe this is the right decision, or maybe we should try this. And, it was so great doing stuff on our own because, time is money. We can spend as much time as we want doing it DIY. But it's nice to have someone that kind of like is checking the clock and be like, maybe we should move on, or maybe we just need to hone in on this part. So definitely pros to both, or pros cons to both. So
Definitely.
Yeah.
What about pre-production? What was there a pre-production on this new album?
Yeah, so which we have also learned from doing the last album. The better the scratch, the better the demo is before going in. Obviously, it's going to lead to a better end product. So like right now, we have that one song, Mona Lisa, out, and then we have 2 being mixed and mastered right now. By the time I guess this podcast probably comes out, we'll have a new song, Black Weather, will be out. But we're really heavy in like demo mode right now. So we want to just get as many demos together as possible And like right now, we've been, bashing out one that we're just like, it's almost there, but there's one little part in the chorus that we just need to smooth over. So the more time we spend on creating these demos, the better it's going to be in the end. And we just come in and use those demos as scratch tracks and gives us a better idea in the studio.
Right.
So yeah, pre-production is huge.
So
for sure.
So to clarify, you are essentially recording your own scratch tracks and entirely like fleshing out the song in pre-production.
Definitely. I mean, it's pretty much like what we were doing before with you, except for we're just not paying to get those mixed and mastered, right? We're just going into the studio and retracking stuff. And obviously things change in the process, but the closer you get going into the studio, the better it is. As much as we wish we had the money to go into a studio and just hash out ideas for weeks, we can't do that.
That'll be the next album.
Yeah, hopefully. So yeah, I mean, any objections on that?
No, man, you hit it perfectly, my friend. You've nailed it perfectly with everything you've said, in my opinion. So
let's do like the 30-second what your home studio setups are. We'll start with you, Brad, because you've actually got a pretty cool setup.
Yeah, I just have basically a garage separate from my house, which is like 20 by 20. And then I built a room inside of that. Everything floats. All the drywall does, and the floor floats as well. And yeah, I just basically have a Scarlett 18i20 interface in there with some mics. And the room is controlled with some sound baffles that I built from help from you. So that's pretty much my room. It's simple, and I think that's the cool thing, is it's meant to be simple for others to know as well. It's not this complicated thing that you have to do to get a cool sound to just record your drums in. Obviously, going to a studio and is really exciting and getting that big sound, but yeah, you can get by doing it at your house, and
definitely
you just got to know what you're doing and pick Malcolm's brain.
Well, you say pick my brain, but I remember I sent you our episode with Yesko Lohan, so Yesko's brain was really the mastermind there.
Yes, fair enough.
Yeah, so that's great. So how many actual like mic inputs are you running on your drum kit?
I'm running 8.
Yep. Yeah, and that's maxed out there, right?
It's completely maxed out, and I think at the time before I was a little worried about doing 8. That was a lot to start with, and now I'm kind of at a point where I could probably take a couple more on, but obviously that includes getting a bigger interface and stuff. But yeah, this is it fits exactly what we need for what we're doing right now.
Yeah, it's awesome, and some of my favorite drums to mix came out of that setup. Like, it's funny. We were just talking before recording this about Vogue Villain's new album. You guys have played with Vogue Villains.
Love those guys.
Yeah, great
band. Those guys.
We tracked that drum sound with 10 mics, I think. So again, not a huge chain. And you did your album with 8, and I'm like no less happy with those than a lot of like 20 to 30 channel setups I've been sent to mix. It's like you really don't. You just need a small amount done right. You know? Yeah. So you've got what you need, I think, but you could always go. It's fun going with more, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely.
It's a never-ending journey.
It's a never-ending journey of learning.
Refresh me. What DAW are you using to track into?
I'm using just the Reaper.
Yep.
Yeah, just very simple. I didn't want to go too crazy. I just wanted the basic stuff to just understand how to use the program, because it was a lot to think about at first. And I think I'm at a point where I want to upgrade to the next thing and move on from there, right?
Reaper's great too. Like, you can do anything with Reaper. You'll be fine, honestly. If you've already got it figured out, I'd just stick with it personally. Yeah. But that brings me to my next question. Lucas, what DAW are you using?
I'm using Logic.
Right. And you two are primarily the two recording engineers of the band. Right?
Well, Miles, our new bass player, he's been with us for a year and a half now.
Yeah.
He's kind of taken on a bunch of this role too, and he also uses Logic as well.
All right, so we got a couple Logics and a Reaper kind of thing. And has that ever been an issue, having different DAWs?
I haven't ran into anything myself.
No. I mean, we always just, send the tracks back and forth. We don't really send the project. So, we have never had an issue with it.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, that's the answer I knew it was, but I get people asking that question all the time, being like, oh, I need to upgrade to this thing. No, you don't. It's fine. You just send the WAV files.
Yeah,
that's all we want.
Yeah, for sure.
So awesome. And Lucas, talk me through your current studio setup.
It's very simple. It's just I have a Scarlett. It's just a 4i4. Nothing too crazy. It was like, I don't know, $400-$500 at the time or something like that. And then obviously going into a DI box. It's a Radial Pro.
The green one? Or the blue one?
I think it's like that one you got right there.
Oh, cool. Yep. J48.
Yes.
Awesome.
That one.
Yeah.
That. And then I just have, a bunch of different plugins I use. I got a bunch of the neural DSPs. Corey Wong plugin, and then the Nolly. I cycle through those.
Yeah.
the whole first album was actually recorded with a Strymon, what was it, Iridium it's called. It's like a little amp sim box. Pretty much everything I had sent you on the album was that.
Yeah.
And then you ended up probably reamping majority of it or whatnot, or you used some of it. I guess for Crooked Judge, that's what you had to use.
Yeah, I guess I used the Iridium on that. But funny enough, the two amp sims I think probably exclusively used was the Corey Wong and the Nolly Neural DSP.
Oh, they're incredible.
They're awesome.
That's what I play through every day when I'm practicing.
Yeah,
I use
they're
right through my monitors,
right?
and that's what I use.
Have you, we're going down a rabbit hole here, listeners, but have you tried their Morgan amp suite?
I have not, but I've been looking at, I get ads for, I'm going to get even more ads for it now too. It's funny. I've been searching through their whole thing, and now it's like, this one comes up, this one comes up.
You'll buy that
I will,
for sure.
They're just, it just makes sense.
It's so good, man.
Yeah.
It's so awesome.
For sure.
I love it.
So yeah, that's pretty much it. That into Logic Pro. Got a couple guitars, and that's about it. It's nothing crazy,
Yeah, sweet.
For sure.
Sweet. Yeah. And then SM7B.
Yeah, for like doing Sean and Miles' vocals and stuff, I have the SM7B into a little cloud lifter to keep up with my Focusrite.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great. It's pretty much all that I need for my end to take the rest of the band on, and Brett has the drums covered. Actually, so, I mean, we were talking about Mona Lisa earlier there, but the two songs that we sent you.
Yeah.
We did 2 of those songs in a day, all just essentially the bed tracks. Just, rhythm guitar, drums, and bass. And we did like the rest of our guitars and keys and vocals all in Brett's studio. So we actually, like, for the first time almost ever, I guess, with Wet Future anyways, we mic'd up the amps ourselves because we had the treated room. Obviously, we always have a DI.
Yeah.
But exactly, yeah. But yeah, that was just a 57 on it. And that was it. It was great.
Killer. So the two, and again, listeners, these 2 new songs, one of them's probably out by the time you're hearing this, but not guaranteed. It'll be out soon anyways if it's not. But so on those 2 songs, there was even more of a hybrid approach of self-recording and the studio recording.
Yeah. Cool. I would say it also came back to a bit of a money thing, but we also, on one of the songs, like there's for example, there's like some guitar harmonies and stuff like that I really wanted to like lock down, and it kind of like, it's nice to, get these bed tracks back. You can kind of sit on them for a couple of weeks, just play around with them to find the best tones and the best direction for, all the other instruments.
Yeah.
Rather than experimenting in a studio when you're spending so much money.
Yeah. So you're prioritizing what that studio time's really
100%.
for.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it sounds like that's mostly all of you set up playing together. Yeah. And then I'm assuming you're cutting vocals with Sheldon, your producer?
Yes. Yeah, we do. And this is a big eye opener for me too. I mean, when we went in there to do Mona Lisa, I was excited. I'm like, oh yeah, what mic's he gonna like pull out for the vocals and stuff like that? This is so cool. And then he pulls out a 7B. And I'm like, oh, this is exactly what we used on the album. Like, why are we here? Just kidding. I mean, the room and everything sounds amazing. And he had a condenser picking up obviously stuff too. But like he was singing into a 7B, and it was just like, this is what I have. Like we could do this.
Yep, totally.
It's nothing crazy, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. Obviously it's going into a chain of compressors or whatever too. We don't have the means to capture.
I was gonna say the outboard gear selection in that studio
is incredible, right?
Yeah.
But then that's the thing too, as he's mixing it through a lot of that same gear too, right? So we send him the same stuff, and then he puts it through that, and it 100%. Sounds incredible.
Yeah. And I mean, you guys have been in this game long enough to know that it's garbage in is garbage out, and luckily you guys aren't garbage.
Thank you. That's the goal.
That helps a lot. But we talked about this when you showed up here. I mentioned that I'd listened to the songs you sent me, and they sound awesome and they're really cool. And then you're like, they're quite different than our last stuff.
Yeah.
But I think that especially with Sean, your singer's voice, it's just so unique that no matter what you do, barring going to a death metal song, it's still going to sound like Wet Future to me.
Yeah.
It still sounds like you all have your own sound, but like that voice really allows you to traverse genres, which is awesome. But as a mixer, it's also like if you recorded Sean on the SM7B, which I'm sure is the one he sang into, that's right in front of you, or that SM58 on Brett right now, or this Procaster in front of me, he would sound awesome on all of them. Yeah. Like he's just a great sounding singer.
He's very gifted.
He makes it easy. It's awesome.
Yeah. He does. Yeah. I think he gives us that, what you're trying to say too, he gives us that enableability to write songs like Crooked Judge and then go all the way to something like Chump Change.
Yes.
And it has that versatility where, that's really cool. It caters to all of our music needs because we all have different influences. So it really is a cool thing, like you're saying.
Yeah, no, that is powerful for
Ve-
sure.
Very much so.
Yeah, for sure.
Gives
Very
it a unique sound too, right?
Yeah,
So,
100%. 100%. Okay, so anything you learned from, or like things you picked up from doing the studio route more than just the once with your first single, or like things that were done differently than you expected working with a new producer?
Good question. You want to take that on there for Brett?
yeah, I mean, I think when we first went in and recorded Toughen Up, we weren't really a band and we've never jammed together. So the experience was just to kind of get the best track that we could. So when we were there, I feel like it was a lot of try stuff out, get it done as soon as possible. Whereas when we went to the other place, we all kind of knew each other more and we were more foundation as a band. So I think when we were to go and record, it was a little bit more cohesive as a unit. And I liked that more. And I think that enabled the product to be better at the end of the day. So I feel like that played a huge factor into it.
Very cool. Was there any like coaching that was kind of what was Sheldon pulling takes out of you in a way that was new, for example? This is for me. I'm curious.
Yeah.
I always love hearing how people do it differently.
Yeah, definitely a bit. He's such an easygoing guy. So it's like we're playing the tracks, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm happy with that. He's like, you got another one in you.
Yeah.
And same with Brett too.
Yeah.
Be like, yeah, do it again.
Do it again. One more. You can do better than that. One more. Or
nice.
Vice versa. I think we're all kind of at that point too where we want to be so happy with what we're doing in there that it's so important to us that it's so nice that somebody else cares as much as we do. And we love that, especially working with somebody like that. So it's like having two brains.
Yeah, I think it comes down to sort of accountability. Like when we're recording on our own, it's easy for us to be like, oh yeah, that's good. Or, the worst is, that's good enough,
Right.
But have him there and be like, try it again, do it again. And it's, it always is going to yield a better
you've
product,
kind of got this
right?
barometer telling you there's like a minimum quality level that he's not going to let it go below.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
100%.
Yeah, for sure.
Were you tracking to a click with the stuff then?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
Always to a click.
Yeah.
Always.
For sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pro that for sure. I love it. Sweet. Okay. Now, maybe we just get nerdy here and we talk about the technical setups of what's going on at a studio like that? Because, I mean, you were maxing out your technical abilities on the DIY album, right? Just out of necessity, really. So what looked different on this, professional studio level? Start with drums.
I guess, drums is very big. I've noticed my room is a very small room, but when you go to something like Monarch, the room is very big, and I think he had 20 something mics on my drums at one point for our last two songs, and that was pretty intense. So I mean, something like that, I like going to the studio for the drum sound, if I can capture a bigger sound.
Right.
But at the end of the day, just gear-wise, the gear was obviously way times better than my stuff at my house. But yeah, I guess I could say that, it all depends at the end of the day. If you can track it good and you're getting a good sound at your house, it's going to kind of do the same thing. That's my opinion.
All right. Cool. And okay, so I mean, for you, Brett, it's kind of it is going to be kind of the same, right? It's going to be mic'd up drums, which is what you're used to.
Totally.
But for you, you got to have an amp
for sure
going instead of recording through a DI.
Yeah.
So was that like a very different feel for you, or was it kind of similar again because you're normally listening to an amp?
I mean, I would play in the control room, amps in another room. Obviously, the tones coming out of that room were phenomenal.
Right.
We don't need to get down the whole comparing DI to amp. At this point, we probably all know there's a bit of a difference there, but it's, you can get almost the same product at the end, right? So, it was great because you can we had a couple amps going, like, check them both. Like, oh yeah, let's go with that one.
Yeah.
But it's standard thing. It's just a mic on the amp.
Yep.
And then there's a condenser in the room. And that was pretty much it. So it's, it's similar to how we would do it, but we would go DI route type of thing.
Right.
So it's not drastically different, but the atmosphere makes for a big difference, right? When you're playing in the control room, you're playing for a producer there rather than playing in my living room or something and recording. It's just such a different feel, and it's going to have a different product, I think.
Right. Now, were you in the control room?
Yeah.
Or, okay, I pictured you in the live room all set up there kind of thing.
I'm talking for some overdub stuff, I
so
guess.
Kind of both, right?
Yeah, I guess, both. Yeah, because when we're doing, obviously, live off the floor, then we're all together too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
You can't really speak for the other guys, Miles and Sean, but do you think the studio experience versus the DIY experience really transformed it for anybody else? Like the reason I bring this up is because I, unlike a lot of people, like really don't like tracking live as a band.
Okay.
I would way rather record my parts in isolation.
For sure.
I'm happy to like do a bed track session, but I'm going to be like, all right, these are all getting deleted.
Yeah. You used it as like a scratch or something.
Exactly. I'm here to help the drummer along or whoever is recording, but then I'm going to go and like sit in the control room.
Yeah.
Get my tone dialed in and track keepers there kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, with Mona Lisa, we did do it like live off the floor like that, and then it was essentially, a mission after go through each track, and then if there's something missed, you just correct it. Yep. So I think for the most part, the bass was all there, and then there might have been like a fill or something that we needed to like really hone in on. So he would like kind of dial that in after.
Yeah, filter
Same
through.
with the guitars and stuff like that. But like for the most part, the bed tracks sort of stayed as is.
Cool.
Which was great. Yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Any issues? Like I'm trying to think of an example with you, Lucas, because we've worked together a lot over different projects, and I can't think of any meltdowns that happened in our projects where it was like, hey, we just can't get this.
Yeah.
But that does happen occasionally.
Of course.
Especially if it's like a new experience for somebody. Like the most Brett, you're an amazing drummer, so it hasn't happened to you, I'm sure, in a long time anyways. Mm-hmm. But like when you first get a drummer into the studio and they've never recorded to a click before, that can be rocky.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
Was there any rocky scenarios making this big change?
It's totally off topic a little bit, but I remember first time being in the studio with you with Shepard at the time, and our drummer at the time came in, and then you were like, okay, we're going to press record now. He's like, how's the song start?
I
Just
love
totally
that.
unprepared.
Love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
But I can't think of any like really big issues we came across other than it's just the whole conversation of time is money. So, we're really just trying to be as efficient as possible.
Right.
And if we had more time, we would probably maybe spend a bit more time maybe crafting a tone a little bit. Maybe working on a part if it feels a little different from playing it live off the floor in the studio there. So that's kind of like the only con I am seeing.
Yeah.
Is just the fact that, when you're DIY, the great thing is that you can just sit on it for weeks. You can play the same thing over and over and over and over again. Right. But when you have so much money on the line for the day and there's actually a schedule, which is obviously it's good to have a schedule too, but
there's some pressure.
There's a pressure. And
there is.
And that can also affect positively or negatively the end result.
100%.
So
there's like it can get the best out of you.
Yeah.
But you're like, I gotta get this done.
Yeah.
And you can get more done than you thought you ever could in a day.
Yeah.
But it also, like you said, there's like this hidden cost of like, well, I probably would have liked to play with different guitar amps a little longer.
Yeah,
that's just it.
It's luxury stuff.
Yeah,
really,
and that's the thing is like, we went in like for the most part, I tossed up between like a couple guitars or something, but like I would love to go through every guitar in the studio and just check everything out, go through all different pedal combinations, amp combinations and stuff like that. But, with our budget, it's just not really practical. So we went in with like, a pretty good idea of what we're going to use, how we're going to track and all that. But it would be fun and it could be definitely beneficial to be able to really experiment in the studio, which is, we did a little bit, but not as much as maybe we would have liked.
Right.
But so that's it.
Yeah, I guess that's where the pre-production comes in, right?
Exactly.
It's like you got to figure that out on your own time.
Definitely, yeah. But yeah, the pressure thing. So I mean, the more prepared you are, the better the demo, the better the scratch, the less pressure you're going to feel because you're going to know exactly what's going on.
Right.
So yeah.
I mean, just to chime in quickly on that, Lucas, I agree with all that stuff too. But at the same time, Malcolm, the pressure thing that you're talking about of like going into the studio and you have to have everything organized, ready to go, whether you're doing stems or if you're just doing it full band jam that day and getting live off the floor. I feel like there's that pressure and time crunch that you have to be perfect because then when you go home and you listen back, you're like, oh, I just needed a bit more time to actually flush this idea out or work out. And that's the thing that I tend to make sure that I'm 100% organized to go into the studio for that so that kind of doesn't happen.
Right.
But that's what I loved about the DIY is I could actually flush ideas out on a song for like a few weeks and then listen back and try things. So I'm kind of either way with that.
Yeah.
But the pressure thing is, you mentioned that, so I wanted to acknowledge that as well.
For sure.
And there's so much pro there to doing a DIY, especially with like the drums and stuff. Because we would just, you would just send us tracks, we'd listen to it and be like, oh, maybe try this, try this, try
Right.
this. And it could be, it would happen over like a month or two where like you're just sending us drum tracks or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously that's not possible in the studio.
Yeah. Not without more budget.
Yeah,
for sure.
exactly.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be great to just like live in a studio for a month?
Oh man, that's honestly
That'd be a dream.
I pitched this to the band like so much too. It's like let's just like rent an Airbnb cabin somewhere. Let's just rent all the gear we need. Let's get a producer and let's just cut a bunch of songs out in the wilderness or something. I would love that.
It'd be unreal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, one of your episodes, maybe it was a guy recording Theory of a Dead Man who was doing that. Does that sound familiar to you? He went into California and rented this big barn house or something like that.
So I'm remembering Jill Zimmerman recorded the vocals with 3 Days Grace at a cabin or something like that.
Maybe
where
that's what
the
I'm thinking
vocalist
of.
was like, it's got to be here.
Yeah.
I've got like kids on the way or something. I
Yeah.
can't remember what it was, but he's like, I'm not coming to your city to make the record. You gotta come to me. So they built like a booth in his like one of the walk-in closets or something and just made it work.
And I love that. I mean, that's gotta make such a great product and then just be so fun to just be in that situation because it's less time constraint.
Yeah.
And it's just, the freedom and the comfortable of just, building a little home for a bit and just,
Totally.
making magic that way. So I would love to do that one day.
I think that's such a cool idea too. Just like creative circumstances where there is still actually a deadline because it's like, okay, we got a week here. We still have to actually get something done.
Yeah.
We should have some objectives in mind for how much you're going to get done. But it's like a whole new environment, hopefully extremely more affordable than whatever other scenarios.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's going to be cons. It's not going to be you're not going to have a control room with any kind of isolation at an Airbnb unless you luck out huge. But it's doable.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the magical DIY route.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. I don't know if what have we not talked about this album? I feel like we've got it. It's cool. Like you've done it both ways. You've got your kind of pros and cons for both. But really, in reality, it sounds to me like you're leveraging the pros you found from doing a DIY and just applying them into your now like professionally recorded album. You're using it for pre-pro. You're using it to pick up the loose ends at the end of the day. Which Band of Rascals, my band, cut a record for tens and tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
So we made the most expensive album I've ever heard of as an indie band.
Yeah.
And I still had to record a crap ton at my home studio. We were talking about, I had a tiny home and I recorded like all of the backing vocals for our album were recorded in that tiny home with blankets all around us and stuff like that. It's like, I don't think that is an option to not do nowadays.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, why wouldn't you, right? I mean, it's like the perfect hybrid. You go in and you get the best drum sound and, acoustic room for vocals and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And why wouldn't you want to overdub it and, really spend time on it on your own to make it like the best possible thing, right?
Yeah. You just got to utilize the rented space for its strengths, first and foremost, and your producer who's also being paid to be there
For sure.
for their strengths kind of thing. And it's like, well, if I've already wrote in the harmony line, we can just cut that on our own. Or if I've already wrote in the solo, I can definitely record that on my own. It'll turn out fine kind of thing. Yeah. So it's a good approach.
It is, definitely,
I'm excited to hear more of this album.
I'm excited for you to hear more too.
Yeah,
definitely.
I don't know if we can chime in on this, but maybe we can. But I like how you're saying a hybrid. Like that's literally what we've been doing now is taking the best of both worlds and trying to make a product out of that at the end. And I think moving forward after our next two songs, when we go into the studio next, we are going to, there was talks about all DIY minus the drums.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So there's talks about stuff like that happening. So, we are talking about a hybrid thing even more in depth there.
Mm-hmm.
So a different approach than what we have done.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Awesome. I think a lot of bands would struggle to even picture that but it's because you have the skills to do DIY that you're like, yeah, we can slice this pie up however we want.
Yeah.
You know,
It's like a drum set, you know, you can have an acoustic set, but you can also have some nice electronics in there, sampled in at the right times for the right scenario.
Totally, 100%. Okay, so let's talk through this theoretical scenario. What are the advantages you see from doing that?
The advantage is, I think that's where I can kind of zone in on the drums and focus in on the drum sound and get exactly what I need and not be rushed so that the other guys can get their jobs done in the studio and we can get a good drum sound, and then the guys can take it to where they need and have as much time as they need to, but at least the structure and the foundation is there. It's like a house. As long as the concrete foundation is there, the boys can work from that.
Yeah.
And I love that approach. And so,
I think it's a great idea, first and foremost. I do love the drum sounds we managed to get out of your record.
Of course.
But they do sound like we've made like the world's best garage rock drum sound, you know? Like it was like punchy and like you can tell it's a small room, which for some songs is the perfect sound.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. But if you want it to sound like a bigger room, it's tricky, right? So that I think you're onto something smart there. Now, they're actually pulling this off, like, is another advantage that you can then just try and cut like a bunch of songs in a day kind of thing.
Yeah,
you know, so
that's
it's like,
what we're hoping.
Now we're renting the studio for 1 or 2 days for an entire album. You know, that's kind of cool, right?
Yeah. Also, Sheldon, our producer, you know, he also holds us accountable too. Like even when we were first going back and we were going to do some guitars and stuff on our own, he's just like, who's producing your guitars on your own kind of thing. Like he wants, you know, he's producing, he wants to make sure that he's getting the best tracks back to him too. So we kind of like, you know, earned his respect that we can do it on our own. You had to prove it to him, right?
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. It's going to represent his body of work as well,
of course,
right? So he cares.
Yeah, for sure. And he doesn't want to deal with some bad tracks that have to be edited that we did to you in the past.
That's all good. I'm happy that I set Sheldon up for success here.
You definitely did.
definitely
for sure.
No, that's rad. I think that's a cool approach. So yeah, you then go choose a studio for the drum sound you're looking for, cut the album entirely, hopefully, kind of thing, and then just split off. Back to Vogue Villains, who we mentioned earlier in this podcast. Similar kind of thing. They had made records before I'd ever worked with them. I think 2 full albums, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, wow.
Like they read a lot.
Yeah, that's right.
But they, like, one of the first things that came up when we were having our conversations about working together and me producing the record was that they wanted to do their own vocal production because they're like so picky. The pickiest I've ever worked with by far. And it's like, if they're renting my time and potentially even a studio's time, they'll never have enough time to do vocals how they want them done.
For sure.
They'll like, it's just not humanly possible.
Yeah.
Under any budget. I don't think Linkin Park could afford to do it with as much time as they want to spend on it.
Damn.
You know? So I was just like, that sounds amazing. Yeah, you do the vocals. I'll do everything else.
Yeah.
And then you handle the vocals. That sounds perfect to me.
For sure.
And it ended up being that they did their own percussion, all of their own vocals, and a couple guitar overdubs. Oh, and all their keys actually as well. Okay. So then we did drums, guitars, bass, and that was kind of like all I had to focus on kind of thing. And it was like, again, it allowed us to prioritize what we were focusing on while I was there with them. You know, it was like, well, we can afford to shoot out a couple guitars for this part of the song because we don't have to worry about trying to squeeze in an album worth of vocals into this week as well. You know, so
that's nice.
It was fantastic, you know, and I think them having the foresight to know that they needed that to get it where they wanted it was like incredibly wise of them.
Yeah. And I'm not a vocalist by all means. So if I was going to record vocals, I'd want to be probably doing it on my own too and not have the pressure of a producer there.
Right.
And it's like, you know, that also obviously with also vocals too, it's such a personal thing that
very
personal. You know, you don't want to feel pressure when you're singing.
Yeah. So I mean, to be that devil's advocate though, I'm also not a vocalist. And if I had to sing and it was going to be on an album, I would not do it without a producer because I'd be like, I need you to make sure it turns out half good. For sure. Like I need somebody to get me there. Yeah. But they're good. They know they can pull it off. They just need time.
Yeah, for sure.
And to be able to take their time and not be rushed kind of thing.
Definitely.
And so it was wise. So I could see this really working for you guys, just being like, we know what we want. We know we can pull it off. Let's go get the help where we need it.
Yeah. and do it with them.
That's it. That's all.
Hey, we're
all
not losing money by recording stuff on our own.
Yeah,
So
100%. You already got all the gear. You got the
exactly.
skills. You're good to go. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Brett, Lucas, thank you so much for coming to chat with us again. Yeah, it's awesome having you guys back on the podcast. Some people may not know this, but we actually have like a mixing course on Crooked Judge, one of their songs that we did years ago now. Still my favorite one.
Yeah.
I fucking love that song.
Thank you so much.
I love that song so much. It turned out so cool, I think. And so you guys are huge friends of the podcast. Love seeing you guys.
You do.
And I'm sure we'll do another one when you guys win your Juno or something.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, there we go. No pressure, right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, man. We appreciate you having us on and everything.
Yeah.
It was nice seeing you.
Okay. That's a wrap.